Before anyone knew if shrinking humans was even possible to film, a medical student turned director decided to inject Hollywood's newest sex symbol into a human body with a crew of British theater actors. What happened next was pure chaos. Raquel Welch nearly died from an allergic reaction. Wires dissolved mid-scene, dropping actors onto concrete. A crow literally stole the submarine. The anticorpos melted twice, and Isaac Asimov hated it so much he rewrote the entire ending just to fix one stupid mistake that would have killed the patient. This is Fantastic Voyage, the 1966 film that broke every rule, every budget, and nearly every actor who touched it. From the Las Vegas showgirl incident to Donald Pleasence's real mental breakdown, from medical schools using it as an actual teaching tool to 60 years of failed remakes, these are 20 absolutely unhinged facts about the most expensive science fiction disaster that somehow won 2 Oscars and changed cinema forever.
And then within a matter of seconds, the ship will grow big enough to become a danger to the system. Then white corpuscles will swarm to destroy.
Number 1. The director was literally a doctor. Here's something 20th Century Fox desperately wanted audiences to know but never actually advertised. Richard Fleischer wasn't just another studio director handed a weird sci-fi script about shrinking people. Before he ever touched a camera, he was a pre-med student who spent years studying human anatomy in college. He dissected cadavers. He memorized organ systems. He understood blood flow and cellular structure at a level that would make most doctors jealous. When Fox executives worried their microscopic adventure would look fake, Fleischer pulled out actual medical textbooks during production meetings. He worked directly with medical illustrators, not Hollywood artists. Every set design started with real microscope slides of human tissue samples. The blood cells weren't designed to look cool, they were designed to look accurate, or at least as accurate as giant foam props could manage. This obsession with anatomical realism shaped every frame. While other directors would have made the inside of the human body look like outer space painted red, Fleischer insisted it feel biological, organic, and disturbingly familiar. That weird pulsing you see in the artery scenes, based on actual cardiac rhythm charts, the way antibodies move, copied from immunology films. The man turned his abandoned medical career into Hollywood's most expensive biology lesson, and nobody even knew their director could have been operating on them instead of directing them. Number 2. The antibody scene turned into an accidental orgy. The most famous scene in Fantastic Voyage almost became the most controversial, and it took 3 attempts to get it right. When Raquel Welch gets attacked by antibodies and the male crew members have to pull them off her skin-tight wetsuit, director Richard Fleischer made a massive miscalculation. He told the actors to just grab what they could and remove the antibodies naturally. First take. The gentleman actors, being professional and polite, carefully avoided touching Welch's breasts entirely. They pulled antibodies from her arms, legs, back, everywhere except the obvious places. When Fleischer watched the playback, he saw Welch covered in antibodies across her chest, looking like what he famously called a Las Vegas showgirl. The scene looked ridiculous, with her chest covered in white blobs while the rest of her body was clean. So Fleischer pulled the actors aside and pointed out the problem. Second take. Every single actor went straight for her breasts. All of them, at the same time. It looked like a groping scene from an exploitation film. Fleischer's head nearly exploded. Finally, for the third take, he had to literally choreograph every hand, telling each actor exactly which antibody to grab and when. You take the left shoulder, you get the right hip, you handle the legs. The scene that looked spontaneous in the film was actually mapped out like a perverted ballet, with Fleischer playing traffic cop for where hands could and couldn't go on his leading lady's body. Number 3. Raquel Welch. Almost died and nobody talks about it. The antibodies that attacked Raquel Welch weren't just props. They were biological weapons. The production team made them from actual food proteins and enzymes to get that organic, glistening look under the lights. But here's what happened that the studio buried. Under the heat of the massive stage lights, these protein-based props didn't just look organic, they became organic. They started rotting. During the hours of filming, with Welch wrapped in these deteriorating protein shells, the combination of heat, sweat, and decaying organic matter created a toxic cocktail on her skin. She broke out in massive welts. Her skin turned red and began swelling. By the end of the shooting day, she was in genuine medical distress. The allergic reaction was so severe that production had to shut down completely while she recovered. The studio never publicly acknowledged this. In interviews, they talked about the challenging antibody sequence, but never mentioned their leading lady was literally poisoned by rotting prop food. Welch herself rarely discussed it, probably because admitting you nearly died from being covered in spoiled protein slime wasn't great for the sex symbol image. But crew members later confirmed she required medical treatment and was in serious pain for days. The glossy, ethereal scene of her being rescued from antibodies? She was fighting through actual biological torture to film it. Number 4. They made a plaster cast of Welch's entire body. That impossibly tight wetsuit that made Raquel Welch an icon? It wasn't bought from a store or even custom-tailored in the traditional sense. The costume department literally made a plaster mold of her entire naked body to create it. Welch had to stand perfectly still while they covered her in plaster from neck to ankles, creating an exact replica of every curve. From this mold, they crafted a 2-piece wetsuit, jacket, and pants with a hidden zipper at the waist that was specifically designed to never be visible on camera. The suit was so precisely fitted that Welch couldn't dress herself. She needed 2 assistants to get in and out of it. She wore it 12 hours a day for nearly a year of production and post-production work. The most insane part? She kept it. Raquel Welch still owned that original wetsuit decades later. The suit was so form-fitted that she literally couldn't gain or lose a pound during filming without it showing. She had to sit in specially designed chairs that wouldn't crease the rubber. She couldn't eat normal meals because the suit was too tight around the stomach. For months, she essentially lived inside a rubber replica of her own skin, and somehow that became one of the most iconic costumes in cinema history. Number 5. The same man who designed Captain Nemo's Nautilus created the Proteus. This wasn't Harper Goff's first submarine. 12 years before Fantastic Voyage, he designed the Nautilus for Disney's 20,000 Leagues Under the Sea, directed by the exact same Richard Fleischer. When Fleischer needed someone to create the Proteus, he didn't even hold auditions. He called Goff and said, "Remember that submarine you built for Jules Verne? I need you to build one for the human bloodstream." Goff approached both submarines with the same philosophy. They needed to feel both futuristic and Victorian, mechanical yet organic. The Proteus borrowed DNA directly from the Nautilus, those brass fixtures, the viewing windows, the sense that this was a craft built by scientists who were also artists. Even the technical advisor, Fred Zendar, was the same on both films. Think about that for a second. The 2 most famous submarines in cinema history, one that explored the ocean's depths and one that explored the human body, were created by the same designer-director team. Fleischer and Goff had essentially cornered the market on fictional submarine films. When Goff died, his obituary mentioned both submarines as his greatest achievements. 2 different frontiers, 2 different decades, same creative vision making the impossible feel real. Number 6. Every underwater scene was shot dry with actors hanging from acid-eaten wires. Those elegant scenes of the crew swimming through blood vessels and lymph fluid. Not a drop of water was involved. Every actor was suspended from wires in front of giant red backdrops, miming swimming motions in mid-air. But here's where it gets genuinely dangerous. The wires were too shiny. They reflected the lights and ruined the illusion of weightlessness. The solution seemed clever at the time. The effects team washed the wires in acid to roughen the surface and eliminate reflection. It worked visually, but acid doesn't stop working just because you're done with it. During long takes, with actors suspended 20 feet in the air, the acid-weakened wires would begin to corrode and snap. Stephen Boyd dropped 8 feet when his wire broke mid-scene. Donald Pleasence's wire snapped during his panic attack scene, which only made his performance more convincing. To make it worse, they shot everything at 50% faster speed, then played it back at normal speed to create the illusion of resistance, like moving through liquid. This meant actors had to perform every motion in slow motion while hanging from dissolving wires, trying to look graceful while genuinely terrified they'd fall. The insurance company found out about the acid treatment after filming wrapped and nearly sued the production. The underwater scenes that looked so peaceful were actually aerial stunts performed over concrete floors with failing safety equipment. Number 7. Donald Pleasence had a real nervous breakdown that stayed in the film. When Donald Pleasence's character encounters the white blood cell and completely loses his mind with terror, that wasn't acting. Pleasence was genuinely having a panic attack. The combination of claustrophobia from the tight sets, exhaustion from the production schedule, and the surreal experience of being inside a human body triggered something in the veteran actor. The script called for fear, but Pleasence delivered existential terror. His screaming, the way his eyes rolled back, the genuine sweat pouring down his face. That was a man actually breaking down. Fleischer kept rolling. He recognized he was capturing something real and horrifying that no amount of direction could have created. In a film where every other actor delivered their lines in measured, scientific monotone, Pleasence's breakdown feels alien and wrong, which is exactly why it works. Years later, Pleasence would be known as Dr. Loomis in Halloween, but crew members from Fantastic Voyage said his white blood cell scene was the most genuinely frightening thing he ever did on camera. It's one thing to act scared of a killer, it's another to actually lose your grip on reality while suspended in a giant plastic artery, and that's what audiences saw, even if they didn't know it. Number 8. The antibodies melted twice and had to be kept on ice. The first batch of antibodies lasted exactly 3 minutes under the hot studio lights before they started melting into toxic puddles. The props department had made them from a new type of experimental plastic that looked perfect, but had one minor flaw. It liquefied at 95 degrees. The stage lights pushed temperatures well over 100. By the time they got Raquel Welch positioned for the first take, the antibodies were already starting to drip. Emergency meeting. Second batch. Different plastic, higher melting point. But now, they had another problem. To keep them from degrading, they had to be stored in buckets of ice water between takes. Production assistants would literally run onto set with ice buckets, stick the antibodies onto Welch's wetsuit with hidden nylon wires, film for maybe 90 seconds, then rush back in to remove them before they started to deteriorate. The final solution was insane but effective. They would attach the antibodies with the nylon wires, film the scene of them being pulled off, then reverse the footage. So when you watch the movie, you're actually seeing the antibodies being attached to her, played backwards. The frantic pulling motion of the actors was actually a careful placing motion, reversed in post-production. The whole sequence that looks like chaos was actually methodically choreographed in reverse, with melting props that had to be kept on ice like some kind of bizarre seafood buffet. Number 9. This was the most expensive sci-fi film ever made, and it almost bankrupted Fox. $6 million. In 1966, that was insanity for a science fiction film. To put it in perspective, Fox was still recovering from the Cleopatra disaster that nearly killed the studio. Executives were actively laying off employees while simultaneously approving the biggest sci-fi budget in history. $3 million went to sets alone, $1 million just for test footage that might not even be used. The gamble barely paid off. Initial box office returns showed a profit of exactly $245,000, one of the smallest margins in studio history for a major release. If it hadn't been for television rights selling later, the film would have been a financial disaster. The irony is that Fantastic Voyage won 2 Oscars and became a cultural phenomenon, but it almost put Fox out of business before anyone saw it. Every penny showed on screen, though. Custom optical printers built from scratch. Sets so large they required separate warehouses just for lighting equipment. The effect of layering live action with colored liquids required inventing entirely new processes that had never been attempted. When James Cameron pitched Terminator 2 decades later, he referenced Fantastic Voyage as proof that expensive sci-fi could work. But Cameron didn't mention that Fantastic Voyage nearly destroyed the studio that made it. Number 10. Isaac Asimov was tricked into writing the novel and fixed the fatal flaw. Everyone thinks Fantastic Voyage was based on Isaac Asimov's novel. Dead wrong. The movie came first, and Asimov was essentially held hostage to write a novelization he despised. Bantam Books offered him $5,000 with 0 royalties. Asimov's response? Hackwork, beneath my dignity. But they kept pushing, and eventually, he caved for the worst possible reason: they needed the book out before the movie for publicity. So the world's most famous science fiction writer found himself racing to novelize someone else's screenplay a script he hadn't even seen. When he finally read it, Asimov went ballistic over one massive plot hole. The submarine is left inside the patient's body. By the film's own logic, it should return to normal size within minutes, instantly killing the scientist from inside. The movie just ends before dealing with this. Asimov couldn't stand it. In his version, he had the submarine dissolve harmlessly before re-enlarging. He fixed dialogue, clarified science, and essentially rewrote the entire third act. The novel came out 6 months before the film, selling more copies than the movie sold tickets initially. People still think Asimov created Fantastic Voyage. In reality, he was paid pocket change to fix another writer's mistakes, never got royalties, and spent the rest of his life explaining he didn't actually create the story everyone credits him with. Number 11. Every scene used multiple submarines you never noticed. The Proteus wasn't one submarine, it was a fleet. There was the full-scale set, big enough for actors to walk around inside, the 5-foot model for medium shots, an 18-inch version for wide shots, and the tiny 3-inch model, the one the Crow stole, for the miniaturization sequence. Every single model had to match perfectly. Here's the obsessive part. If someone accidentally scratched the 5-foot model during filming, that exact scratch had to be reproduced on the 18-inch version, the 3-inch version, and the full-scale set. A smudge of paint on one meant matching smudges on all. The props team had charts tracking every dent, mark, and imperfection across all versions. During editing, Fleischer would cut between these different submarines, sometimes within the same sentence of dialogue. The audience never knew they were looking at completely different props. When the submarine enters the ear, that's the 18-inch version. When they show the crew inside, that's the full set. When it spins in the bloodstream, that's the 5-foot model on wires. The continuity was so perfect that even today, knowing this, you can't tell when they switch. The real Fantastic Voyage was the editing room, where 4 different submarines became one. Number 12. The Crow incident stopped everything. Picture this scene. The 3-inch Proteus model, handcrafted, irreplaceable, worth thousands of dollars, sits on a prop table near an open window during lunch break. A crow flies by, sees something shiny and decides it's found treasure. The bird grabs the submarine in its claws and takes off across the studio lot. The first person to notice was a grip coming back from lunch, who saw what he thought was a bird carrying a toy airplane. Then someone screamed, "The submarine!" Complete pandemonium. The entire crew ran outside, chasing a crow across the 20th Century Fox lot. The effects team was calculating how long it would take to build a replacement. The producers were calculating how much money they were losing per minute. The Crow, struggling with the weight, finally dropped the Proteus somewhere in the back lot. It took 3 hours to find it, slightly scratched but intact in a pile of lumber. The incident became legend. For the rest of production, they called it the first hijacking in inner space. And someone put a sign on the prop table: "Close all windows. Beware of birds." The idea that a random crow almost derailed a $6 million movie by stealing a submarine remains one of Hollywood's most absurd production disasters. Number 13. Medical schools use this fiction as actual education. Here's the bizarre twist nobody saw coming. Throughout the 1970s and well into the 1980s, actual medical schools across America were showing clips from Fantastic Voyage in anatomy and immunology classes. Not as entertainment, not as a joke, but as a legitimate teaching tool. Professors found that students remembered biological structures better when they'd seen them as giant, glowing sets than when studying flat textbook diagrams. The irony is staggering. The antibodies that nearly killed Raquel Welch? Medical students were studying them. The white blood cell that gave Donald Pleasence a breakdown? Used to explain immune response? The completely scientifically impossible miniaturization? Ignored so they could focus on the visualization of platelet aggregation and circulation. One professor at Johns Hopkins admitted the film was completely wrong about everything, but said it didn't matter because it made students remember. When you tell someone about red blood cells, they forget. When you show them Raquel Welch swimming through giant red balloons, they remember forever. The film that was meant to be pure fantasy became an accidental medical textbook. Isaac Asimov, who spent so much effort fixing the science in his novelization, would have been appalled to know fiction was being taught as fact, even if it worked. Number 14. The miniaturized journey lasts exactly 60 minutes of screen time. This wasn't luck or coincidence. Richard Fleischer deliberately structured the film so that once the Proteus enters the body, exactly 60 minutes of movie time passes before they escape, matching the 60-minute deadline in the story. It's one of the most elegant narrative tricks ever attempted in cinema, and almost nobody notices it. From injection to escape, 60 minutes of film. The audience unconsciously feels the same time pressure as the characters. Your internal clock syncs with the countdown. When they're racing against time, you're literally racing with them, minute for minute. Modern films try to create urgency with quick cuts and loud music. Fleischer did it with a watch. The editing team had to be ruthless. Scenes were cut or extended not based on drama, but on mathematics. A beautiful shot of the heart, cut it down. We're at minute 32. Need more tension in the ear? Extend it. We're running short at minute 45. The whole film becomes a real-time experience hidden inside a narrative. When the crew finally escapes and you exhale with relief, you've been holding your breath for exactly 1 hour. No other film has ever tried this again because the precision required is insane. Number 15. The sets were so large. They needed architecture permits. The human body sets weren't just big, they were classified as buildings. The lung set required structural engineering approval. The heart chamber needed foundation permits. The city of Los Angeles literally had to approve the construction of a human artery as if it were an office building. Insurance companies sent architectural inspectors to verify that actors wouldn't be crushed by falling cell walls. The brain set used enough fiber optic cable to wire a small town. The ear canal consumed more plastic than some factories use in a year. The crew needed ladders just to adjust lights on the ceiling cells. Some sets were so large that walkie-talkies didn't work from one end to the other. They had to install an intercom system like you'd find in a warehouse. After filming, the studio didn't know what to do with these massive structures. Some were recycled into other productions. Legend says pieces of the Fantastic Voyage artery showed up in Star Trek sets. The lung became part of an alien landscape in another film. For years, if you watched sci-fi movies carefully, you might spot a piece of human anatomy pretending to be another planet. The inside of the human body was so expensive to build that Hollywood kept reusing it, organ by organ, for a decade. Number 16. Raquel Welch was discovered at a beauty contest by the producer's wife. Raquel Welch wasn't on anyone's radar for Fantastic Voyage until Saul David's wife spotted her at a beauty contest and told her husband, "That's your actress." Welch had done some small roles, but nothing significant. She wasn't even properly under contract yet. Fox executives wanted an established star. David wanted the girl from the beauty pageant. This was Welch's first major studio contract, her first leading role, her introduction to the world. In parallel, Stephen Boyd had been absent from Hollywood for 5 years. He was essentially starting over. The film that would become a classic was staffed with people who were either unknown or forgotten. The biggest name was Donald Pleasence, and he was hired specifically because he looked creepy enough to be the saboteur. The casting was so unconventional that the original plan was to make this a Derek Flint spy spoof with James Coburn. When that fell through, they pivoted to serious sci-fi with a cast of nobodies. The desperation shows in the contracts. Welch was locked in for publicity appearances for years. Boyd had to agree to potential sequels. Everyone was gambling everything because nobody had better options. Number 17. The soundtrack had no melody because composers thought bodies don't sing. Leonard Rosenman's score for Fantastic Voyage broke every rule of film composition. No themes, no melody you could hum, no resolution. Just dissonant clusters of sound, atonal progressions that never quite settled into music. Studio executives listened to the playback and panicked. The audience won't understand this. It sounds broken. Rosenman's defense: you're inside a human body. Bodies don't have melodies. They have rhythms, pulses, electrical impulses, but not songs. He wanted viewers to feel trapped in an alien landscape that happened to be their own interior. Every sound was designed to feel organic but wrong. Heartbeats that weren't quite regular. breathing that seemed to come from everywhere. The only moment of actual melody comes in the final seconds of the credits, after they've escaped the body. That first real musical phrase feels like breathing fresh air after being underwater. Executives wanted to fire Rosenman and hire someone to write a proper score. Fleischer threatened to quit if they touched it. The atonal nightmare stayed, and film composers studied it for decades as an example of how to use non-music as music. Modern horror films still copy Rosenman's technique of denying the audience the comfort of melody. Number 18. Proteus, named after shape-shifting god as hidden philosophy. The submarine wasn't called Proteus by accident. In Greek mythology, Proteus was the sea god who could change shape at will to avoid capture. The only way to get answers from him was to hold on no matter what form he took. It's a perfect metaphor for a vessel that must adapt to survive the constantly changing environment of the human body. But deeper than that, Proteus represented the film's entire philosophy about science. Just when you think you understand something, it changes. The body they enter as scientists becomes an alien world. The mission to save a life becomes a fight for survival. The submarine designed for exploration becomes a prison. Every certainty shapeshifts into something else. Almost nobody in 1966 caught this reference. Classical education was already fading. But Fleischer and the writers knew exactly what they were doing. They named their vessel after a god who embodied transformation and hidden knowledge. In a film about literally entering the mysteries of human anatomy, they chose the one mythological figure who represented the impossibility of ever truly knowing anything. The Fantastic Voyage wasn't just through the body, it was through the realization that even our own interior remains foreign territory. Number 19. The fatal error that would have killed everyone. The ending of Fantastic Voyage contains a plot hole so massive that it should destroy the entire film. The Proteus is abandoned inside the patient's brain. The crew escapes through the tear duct, but the submarine stays behind. By the film's own rules, it will return to normal size within minutes. A full-size submarine materializing inside someone's brain equals instant death. The movie just ends. Credits roll. Nobody mentions this tiny problem of a submarine about to explode inside the skull of the man they just saved. The script had no solution. The writers knew it was a problem but figured audiences wouldn't think about it. They were wrong. Letters poured in. Scientists wrote articles. The film that tried so hard to be scientifically plausible had missed the most obvious fatal flaw. Asimov fixed it in his novel by having the submarine attacked and dissolved by white blood cells while still miniaturized, making it harmless. But the film never addressed it. For 60 years, this has driven people crazy. They saved the scientist just to kill him 5 minutes later. Some fans created elaborate theories that the submarine was made of dissolvable material. Others insisted it was somehow expelled naturally. The truth is, the filmmakers just forgot to solve their own biggest problem and hoped nobody would notice. Everyone noticed. Number 20. 60 years of failed remakes prove lightning doesn't strike twice. The moment Fantastic Voyage succeeded, Fox announced a sequel, Dead. The 1970s brought 3 different remake attempts, all dead. The 1980s saw 2 more versions planned, dead. James Cameron was attached to a remake in the 1990s, dead. Roland Emmerich tried in the 2000s, dead. As recently as 2016, Guillermo del Toro was supposedly directing a new version, dead. Why can't anyone remake Fantastic Voyage? Because the original was a perfect storm of insanity that can't be replicated. You'd need a director who studied medicine, an actress willing to be covered in rotting proteins, a crew willing to hang from acid-eaten wires, a studio desperate enough to gamble everything. And most importantly, you'd need it to be 1966, when audiences had never seen anything like this before. Every attempt to modernize it with CGI looks worse than the practical effects. Computer-generated blood cells feel less real than painted balloons. Digital submarines lack the weight of physical models. The constraints that forced creativity in 1966 don't exist anymore. And without constraints, there's no magic. Fantastic Voyage worked because it shouldn't have worked. It was too expensive, too dangerous, too ambitious, and too weird. That's exactly why it became immortal. Fantastic Voyage remains the most expensive gamble that barely paid off, the most scientific film that got the science wrong, and the most dangerous production that somehow didn't kill anyone, though it came close. Raquel Welch survived allergic reactions and choreographed groping. Donald Pleasence had a real breakdown they kept in the film. A crow nearly destroyed everything. Medical schools taught fiction as fact. And Isaac Asimov spent the rest of his life explaining he didn't create the story everyone thinks he created. The real voyage wasn't into the human body. It was into the absolute insanity of 1960s Hollywood, where a pre-med student turned director could spend $6 million to hang actors from dissolving wires while they pretended to swim through blood made of milk and food coloring, where a beauty contest winner would become an icon by wearing a wetsuit molded from her naked body, where respected British actors would grab antibodies off breasts in carefully choreographed sequences that had to be filmed 3 times to avoid looking like assault. So which fact broke your brain? Was it Raquel Welch's allergic reaction the studio covered up? The crow that stole the submarine? Donald Pleasence's real panic attack? Or knowing that somewhere in a medical school archive, there's probably still a copy of Fantastic Voyage labeled as educational material? Drop your thoughts below. But first, hit that subscribe button because the strangest stories from cinema's most dangerous decade are just getting started. Next time, we're diving into a film where the entire cast was actually drunk, the director was actually arrested, and the studio actually burned down. The 1960s were wild, but you haven't seen anything yet.